Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm here today to deliver a talk on turning applications into apps. And this is tips on getting hired and also how to attract the best mobile developers to your company. Who we are. So I'm Paul Shone. I'm one of the co-founders of Pixelated People. We're a tech recruitment agency based in London and that specialises in matching tech talent with companies so they can create beautiful mobile products together. As I said, I'm Paul, one of the co-founders. I've been building mobile engineering teams for over 15 years now. I'm a new dad. I'm a petrolhead, a really bad guitarist. I do a bit of scuba diving, like to go to the gym, and I hate bananas. And this is Stuart, the other co-founder of Pixelated People. He's been building design teams for over 18 years. The guy's a walking encyclopedia of good designers. I still don't really understand how his brain works, but it's a pretty amazing thing. And so if you're in the design space, go and hit Stuart up. What we do best, we cover everything across delivery, design, across UX, product design, and of course development with a particular specialism in mobile. The kind of clients we work with across a broad range, they cover everything from big global corporates, startups, digital agencies, consultancies, and everybody in between. Enough about us. Why I'm here today. So basically, I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've helped hundreds of mobile people find jobs and seen a very broad range of approaches to hiring. I've seen it go horribly wrong more times than I care to remember, but also lucky enough to work with a lot of amazing hiring managers that really know how to find what they want. I hope that this broad perspective that I have across the market could be of some value to you, whichever side of the recruitment process you sit, either as a candidate or, of course, a hiring manager. And even if you're not in the market right now, maybe these tips could be useful for you in the future. The talk is split into two halves. Obviously, that's quite clear. If you're looking for a role, I'll be giving you some tips and pointers on how to optimize your opportunities in the current job market. And then the second half will talk about how to hire and attract the best talent. We're going to split it into two halves, so we'll have a break in the middle, so you'll be able to chill, grab a beer, eat some more pizza, go for a wee, whatever you need. So we'll start with the job seeker side of the process, and I'm going to cover kind of four main topics. One is your CV and 5 tips to help your CV pop. Everything starts with the CV. Given a few simple pointers will really make a difference. Your LinkedIn profile, obviously, as a recruiter, it's one of the first things we look out for any candidate. So optimizing your profile is a massive step to make you more searchable, more discoverable, and obviously making that link between you and jobs that may be of interest. The third thing is applications, what to do, what not to do. Obviously, there's a lot of competition out there in the market right now. It can get quite overwhelming searching and applying for jobs. So a few pointers on the do's and don'ts may hopefully help. And then also how to nail your interview prep. Interviews can obviously be nerve-wracking, and the best tonic is all about preparation. So I'll give you some tips and pointers on how to nail it. Starting with CV tips. So the first point I would go into is like how to talk about yourself and the contribution that you've made in the roles that you've had throughout your career. This should really start as a brief description of the company, the product that you've worked on, and also provide a description of the problems that you've tackled and how you're involved in tackling them as well. Including measurable metrics of effects that your work has had is also really powerful to really make it stand out. Also talking about the team. So were you flying solo or were you part of a team? How was that structured? What were the development processes and approach within that team? Will really help to give potential employers like a real view on how you've developed as well as what you've developed. Detail the tech stack you've worked with, but also why and how you applied it. This shows off your deeper understanding And it's really important to remember that recruiters use Boolean searching on keywords to find relevant profiles. So including a list of the technologies that you've worked on in your CV is kind of obvious, but not everybody does it. It still baffles me sometimes, but it's really important that you're including as many keywords as possible, and really think about the keywords that recruiters are probably going to be searching on. And also the other thing that I see is like people seem to have a fixation on reducing their CV down to 1 or 2 pages. I think it's like an old-fashioned thing that was like taught in schools, and all career advisors give this kind of advice. But you know, come on guys, like we work in the tech space now, and I think that if you're a hiring manager or if you're a recruiter, like we really want to understand the detail. We want to understand the nuance of what you've been doing. Make it visual. So a lot of CVs are just black and white. It's a really boring thing to look at. Trust me, I've looked at thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So make yourself pop by including some images. And I think mobile is a really good medium for that. You know, I think if you can include app icons that you've worked on, particularly if they're high profile with good brand names on them. You know, I've spoken to people that are working for Sky, Jaguar Land Rover, you know, amazing brands. Then if you could put an app icon on your CV alongside the job profile, I think that's a really visual way to A, help the person understand where you've worked at a glance without even having to read, and B, it will make it stand out. It will just be more attractive and sexy, if a CV can be such a thing. And the other thing that I like to see is also like people that show off their competency levels using infographics. So I see some quite cool things on CVs these days where it might be a bar, it might be a pie chart saying I work with iOS, I work with Android, I work with Flutter, and showing your competency level. I'm a 8 out of 10, a 4 out of 5, whatever scale you want to use. It's a really simple like visual representation of your capabilities. Another one is links to the App Store. So it's really handy for me when I'm reviewing a CV to be able to jump straight into somebody's app that they've worked on, have a play with it, see what it does, get a bit more context around the application and what it does, and also see reviews and stuff like that. Obviously, if you've been working on an app that's got really bad reviews, then that can obviously potentially be a hindrance, but also it can be a real talking point in an interview to kind of show that you understand why that might have been and how you could improve it. Please make sure the links work though, because I often see links that go nowhere, and that is a real turn off. Showcase you and your code. So LinkedIn, GitHub, Stack Overflow, portfolio websites, certifications, anything that you've got of that nature is really worth including, and show it off. Make sure it's front and center on your CV so people can get a picture of your broader interests, your capability, and actually jump straight in and look at some of your code. That's the most, as an engineer particularly, that's the most powerful thing. If you contributed to an open source project and or spoken at an event, then shout about it. That's obviously a great thing that companies look for as well. And all this will help hiring managers jump in and see who you are and what you can offer. And last but not least, showcase your personality. You know, you're all individuals. You all have different interests, different strengths, different weaknesses. I think be honest, be professional, but also be yourself. And I think conveying a bit of personality, like I think hiring for culture these days is such an important thing, that your CV is the first opportunity to kind of showcase who you are. And you can really show your tone of voice, your interests. Keep it cool and concise. Don't be too wacky as well. I think there's, again, a limit on what you should and shouldn't include, but something is good. Next, the LinkedIn profile. Think of your LinkedIn profile as your online CV. Sorry, go on.
Can I just ask about the CV?
Sure.
All right. Would you say if there was a CV with no more, like if there was only 2 pages, you wouldn't consider that? Or?
No. That's not what I'm saying. I think what I was saying is more around if you're trying to cram everything into 2 pages for the sake of cramming it into 2 pages, then I don't think that's a worthwhile exercise. If it goes over to 2.5 pages, I'm not going to reject you. Nobody's going to reject you for it. Obviously, if it's 2 pages and it's nice and concise, that's not an issue at all. So,
Paul, can I just ask
yeah.
because I'm probably a lot older than some people here.
Yeah.
I've been doing this a long time. It's hard to get it onto 4 pages. That's actually really trimming things down.
Mm-hmm.
If I went to 5, 6 pages, would that be?
Yeah, like I see what you're getting at. Like you've got a lot of experience, and it's sometimes difficult to like condense that down and really showcase everything that you've done, because some things may be useful for some clients and some may be for other. I guess in that case, my advice would be that, and I'll talk about this later, is that you should really be tailoring your CV to each job application. And I understand that that is quite a time-consuming process and it's very labour-intensive and whatever, but we're in a competitive job market, and the people that go above and beyond are the ones that are going to stand out. So that would be my advice. I think 4 pages is probably a good place. If it was more than that, it wouldn't necessarily put me off, but try and keep the stuff that's the most relevant front and centre for that role.
Okay, thank you.
So think of your LinkedIn profile as your online CV. That kind of sounds obvious, but I see so many LinkedIn profiles that are literally just a list of jobs that they've worked on, companies, and no other information. Again, like LinkedIn profiles are fully searchable. They match you with, there's all sorts of clever stuff that LinkedIn does. And if it is just plain and simple and has nothing in it, then you're going to be doing yourself a disservice, and it's not going to allow you to match with roles that could be of interest or be searchable by recruiters like me, who might approach you about a role that you've never heard of that suddenly is really appealing. So the first kind of starting place for that is the picture, and first impressions count. It's kind of not that important in terms of the information, but it is important in terms of first impressions. And if you've got a bit of a wacky photo, then it's not necessarily going to set the best first impression. So tips that I would give for that, I've got 10. Pick a recent photo, make sure it looks like you. I've seen all sorts of weird stuff. I saw some guy the other day that literally just had his bald head cut off from here. Bizarre. Use a high resolution image. Sounds obvious, still see really bad quality images. LinkedIn suggests 400 by 400 pixels is the best size. Make sure your face takes up at least 60% of the frame. If it's a photo of you that's on the top of a distant mountain back there somewhere, no one's really going to see who you are. Be the only person in the picture. This isn't Facebook, it's not Instagram, this is about you. So make sure it's about you. Get someone else to take the picture for you, kind of obvious. Don't do selfies, I don't think they look professional. Smile. Apparently studies show that people view you as more likeable and influential if you do. And apparently there's bonus points for showing teeth as well. I didn't write the study, I read it. Avoid distracting backgrounds. So keep it plain, keep it clean, keep it simple. Wear something that you'd wear for work. So if you're looking to apply to a bank, probably best not to be wearing a t-shirt and shorts in your picture. But if the kind of roles that you're going for are more casual, then just be you, but wear something that's kind of professional, not a clown suit. Ensure that you're well lit. I still see photos that are like really dark. You can't really make the person out. It's strange, it's rare, but kind of obvious. And then use filters wisely. Avoid anything that really changes your appearance or looks unnatural. Create a standout summary. So the about section is one of the most important parts of your profile, used to summarize you, your experience, achievements, passions, and personality. First, now the hook. Your full summary isn't displayed until the reader clicks the See More button. So your first 50 words best grab your reader's attention. Try writing something that needs further explanation or a claim that needs justification. This will leave the reader intrigued and unable to resist that button. Now that the reader is engaged, don't waste this opportunity by just listing your skills and job titles. Your bio is a chance to tell your story, and studies show that if we're told something through a narrative, then we're more likely to relate, absorb it, and remain engaged. So start at the beginning, explain why you do what you do, what led to where you are, and take this opportunity to show your passion. Then talk through your qualifications and experiences, discuss the skills you have, why they matter, and the effect they have had. Throughout, make sure you provide data that backs up your claims and proves your financial impact and commercial achievements within the mobile apps that you've worked on. Next, move on to your interests. Keep it professional. What do you help others do? What are your hobbies? What are your goals? Ideally, some of these should align with the roles and companies you're looking for as well. And finally, end with a call to action. Either talk about the type of roles you're looking for, or if you're not actively looking, you can sign off with a friendly invitation to connect. And remember to keep it short but snappy. Ensure each point you make adds something to your personal sales pitch. Also make sure to break up your text into smaller blocks to make it less daunting for the reader. Searchability, we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but a keyword optimized profile appears in more searches. More searches equals more views, and more views equals more opportunities. So using keywords in your job title, experience, projects, skills is essential to ensure that you're showing up in a potential employer's or recruiter's searches. Use mobile job listings to identify what keywords are the most relevant to your job role and feature them naturally in every section of your profile. Firstly, working from the top down, location is one of the key filters used when conducting a search. So make sure yours is accurate. It will help your profile stand out 23 times more in searches according to LinkedIn. The UK doesn't narrow it down enough. Obviously, we're up in Leeds. If you're based in Leeds and looking for jobs in Leeds, it should say Leeds or one of the surrounding areas. Set your location to where you are. Write a great headline. Most people have their current job title and company in theirs, but it doesn't add value to help you stand out. LinkedIn gives you up to 220 characters to use in this part, so use it to outline your job role, your specialization, and the company. Then follow it with the results you've got to illustrate your value in a tangible way. As an example, I'm an iOS developer at Deliveroo. I've improved the search feature, which boosted sales by 40%. It's like a very clear impact that you've had, and will really help to grab the reader. And lastly, the experience section should be as detailed as your CV. Again, back to what I said before, so many profiles that I see are literally just a list of where they've been employed and what their job title is. And actually, now that you've created your CV based on the points that I raised before, you should be inputting that data onto your LinkedIn profile, so the two things are very closely aligned. You've got 2,000 characters per role, so use it, don't waste them. Lots of opportunities to add keywords. Got skills. So you've highlighted your achievements in your headline, summary and experience sections. Now let's kick it up a notch. Adding at least 5 relevant skills can boost your chances of being discovered by over 31 times, according to LinkedIn. LinkedIn skills assessments offer a quick way to earn a verified badge that boosts your profile. Candidates with verified skills are 30% more likely to get hired, and giving employers peace of mind and strengthening your personal brand. So it's worth putting the time in on that. Don't forget about your skills endorsements, where former colleagues and clients vouch for your abilities. That's also another powerful way and a visual cue for people looking at your profile. And finally, and the most important one, is get recommendations. People that you've worked with, people that you love, your fan club. Still, so many profiles I see don't have good recommendations, and I'm sure everybody here is doing good work, and getting somebody else to champion that is the most powerful way to gain credibility, full stop, in my opinion. And the last bit, so have a voice. You need to be relevant, you need to be posting, you need to be showing that you're an industry leader, you need to be getting involved in the community, engaging in other people's content, engaging in influential people's content. And that can really help raise your profile on LinkedIn. It's kind of obvious social media stuff, but I think particularly with LinkedIn, so many people are like LinkedIn voyeurs. They're just kind of there looking and reading and seeing and applying for jobs, but don't actually see the power of it in terms of raising your professional profile. Some people are quite daunted by doing that and don't necessarily have the biggest voice naturally or want to, but it's something really worth working on. So we now move on to applications. So starting with doing your research. Nearly a third of new hires quit within the first 3 months. I spoke to somebody that's 3 days in. I hope that's not for you. An eye-opening stat that suggests many aren't doing their homework on potential employers. Among these early quitters, 43% said that the role wasn't what they expected. 34% left due to bad experience, and 32% blamed a toxic work culture. But most of this could be avoided with a bit of research before jumping at that dream job offer. While it's easy to take things on face value, it's crucial to do a deeper dive into the company's culture and dynamics. Doing some quick research could save you a lot of heartache down the road. So here's 4 easy tools to help you find an employer you'll want to stick with. One is kind of obvious, the Glassdoor thing. It obviously gives a fairly good representation of what it's like to work at a company. Look for patterns though, because typically with these kind of review sites, you get the disgruntled person that's going to make a point of going on there and slagging everyone off. But if there isn't a pattern and it's just kind of a one-off thing, then obviously take that into consideration as well. Google reviews. If customers are happy, that generally is a good indicator of good product and good company culture as well, because I don't think the two things can happen independently. The other is LinkedIn profiles. So, have a look at the company, look at the people that are employed there, see the kind of caliber of engineers that work there, what their backgrounds are. Is it a high level place doing high level work? Are the leaders in that business really credible? All of those things. And then social media. Dive into the company's social media accounts, how they interact with their audience. Do employees engage with their content? A company's online personality often mirrors its workplace culture, so it can be a good way to look. Utilize your fan club. This is something that is really powerful in my line of work, but I think it's powerful in anything. When you're searching for a job, again, you've worked with loads of people throughout the years. Obviously, the longer your career, the more connections you're likely to have. And I think enough people don't put in enough effort to utilise that fan club. Call on old friends, old colleagues that you haven't spoken to for donkey's years. Look at their profiles on LinkedIn. They've probably moved jobs 2 or 3 times since you last spoke to them. They might be somewhere that's really of interest to you. Really use that little black book to help you get that foot in the door, because a warm introduction like that is a really, really powerful way to get you into companies that are of interest to you. Recruiters are your friends. Obviously, I would say that. But building relationship recruiters in the mobile space can be invaluable. The right recruiter with strong relationships with their clients can open doors for you more directly. They can give you advice on your CV, salary requirements, and if they're well informed, give you valuable information about client's application process to give you an edge when you're going for interview. They can suggest opportunities to you that you may not have seen. They will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of that application process, arranging interviews, helping you manage the offer stage, which you may be doing more independently if going directly. You can use LinkedIn to search for recruiters that are specialists in your space. If you're a mobile person, you type in recruiter, mobile, some keywords, you're probably going to bring up me and a few other people. So building connections with those kind of recruiters that are really focused in the area that you specialize and making them allies, building a relationship with them, getting to know them, telling them about what you do, can really help you in the long run, because you start to think of people when roles come up. Being front and centre when that happens is a good tool. Doing the same with internal recruiters as well at companies. So if there's companies that you're targeting or have identified as somewhere that you'd like to work, you can do the same thing with their internal talent team. Send your CV, get on their radar. It works the same way. Unfortunately, not all experiences are positive, so choose wisely as well. Be targeted. Know what you're looking for. Really take the time to sit down and figure out what you want from your next job. What are your goals? What's going on in your life? What's going to suit you? What do you want to achieve in this next step of your career? How much money do you want to earn? Where do you want to be based? All of this stuff. Don't just go and start applying for roles. Really give it some thought and be targeted with your approach. What sectors you want to work in? Do you want to work in a startup? It's not for everybody. If you've just had a kid, joining an early stage startup is probably not a good match because you're going to be tired and they're going to want you to work every hour under the sun. So thinking about those kind of things is important as well. And search through job listings, of course, but actively identify companies that you think fit that target that you're looking for, or ask a recruiter to help you target those companies on your behalf. And the last bit, job applications. Searching for suitable roles using keywords on LinkedIn, job search engines, Otter, Indeed, those kind of places, helps you to directly target companies, career pages, and trusted recruitment agency sites. Be thorough and play around with the filters to get specific on those requirements that you defined earlier. Be prepared to, I spoke about this earlier as well, but be prepared to draft a tailored CV for each application and also a cover letter because, again, it's a competitive job market. You need to stand out against other CVs, and whilst it's tempting just to put one CV fits all, it doesn't, and there may be things that you've done that are really relevant to that client that you need it to shout about. I have this conversation all the time with people, and it really does make a difference. It's time consuming, it takes time, but it's worth the effort. Check and double check your applications are error free. The biggest immediate turn-off is spelling mistakes, bad grammar, punctuations. There's loads of tools that can help you do that kind of stuff Grammarly if it doesn't come to you naturally. But it's really important to be credible from the start. And track and follow up your job applications. So don't just send your CV to a company and then just sit there kind of praying. I think people that are proactive, it's a bit like kind of if you know anything about marketing automation, you get the first message, then you get the second message, then you get the third message. You don't always respond the first time. And sometimes your first message might disappear out of an inbox, but by that third, fourth message, they might actually respond. So you don't want to be annoying. You don't want to be hounding them every day, check my CV. But once a week, twice a week is reasonable. And I think it helps to show that you're passionate about joining their company. And keep applying. Like finding a new role takes time and it's time consuming. It can be disheartening when you don't get responses. But just keep the faith, keep focus on your goals, and it will happen. Moving on to interview prep. So, the first stage of interview prep. As they say, preparation is the key to success in anything. I'm going to run through some pointers that should help you nail that interview and calm those nerves. Ask a recruiter. Be they internal or external, for any additional information that could be useful to you in your interview preparation. Don't just go on the job spec, don't just go on what you know about the company, because if you're working with somebody that has already been through that process a few times with candidates historically, they're probably going to have a view on what happens in the interview and how therefore you should prepare yourself. So asking those kind of questions is really invaluable. In most cases, they should be able to give you a good steer. Don't expect the answers, of course, as well, but it should be good enough to help you prepare accordingly. Introductory calls is the opportunity for you to tell your story. After shortlisting CVs, most companies will kick off the hiring process with a 30 to 45-minute introduction call. The main goal is to share general info about the role and company, but it's also a chance to learn more about you, your projects, your experience, and what you're looking for next. It's kind of tempting to go into this because it's more relaxed, kind of early stage interview. It's kind of tempting not to prepare as well as you could, but it's a really important first step and don't underestimate it. It's your chance to make first impressions, and as we've already said, they count. Do your homework, dive into their website, check out the interviewer on LinkedIn, read recent articles that they've posted, check their blog, scour their social media, do everything that you can to get an understanding. Use Crunchbase to learn about their funding. If you're looking at startups, that's really important as well. You need a solid grasp of what they do, what their mission is, and their mobile product, so that you can be well informed for the conversation. Test their app. If you're applying for a mobile job and you haven't tested their app, then more for you. You should be downloading it, checking it out, write down some points on it, critique it, look for signs for improvement. Companies will appreciate that, as long as you don't absolutely slag it off. But companies generally will appreciate that you've gone to the effort to do that and that you're interested. Prepare questions. skip the salary talk for now. This is for way further down the line, and you should be clear on that from the very start of the process anyway. But ask about the company's biggest challenges, their unique selling points, mission, growth plans, and how their team operates. Know why you're interested. Be ready to explain why this company is a good fit for you, focusing on the product and mission, not just salary or convenience of where they're based. The technical round. It's always stage 2, typically. Obviously, there's variation within interview processes, but this is kind of what we see more typically. So it's where you get to show off your coding capability, and companies often do it in different ways. Like traditionally, the most common way was the take-home technical test. I think they've become more unpopular, but they're still very, very present in the industry. And I think there are some objections to it because it asks the candidate to put in a lot of time up front before, with no guarantee of getting a job, but it's part and parcel of the process. But the biggest things that we see candidates slip up on, and this is something to note down, is not following the spec, sticking to the requirements given. Deviation can cost you. Obviously, if you want to improve on what is there, then and do a little bit more than what's expected, then that can be a nice value add. But don't read the spec and then think, actually, I fancy doing this instead, because they want that for a reason. So stick to it. Over-engineering it. Companies value practicality over new flashy tech. Resist the urge to use the latest framework unless specifically requested, and really stick to what you know best, because you're going to give the best representation of yourself doing that. The biggest one that I see all the time is people skipping unit tests in technical tests. So make sure, even if it's not mentioned, make sure to add them, because it shows that you're thorough. And then a lack of documentation. Still see so many people submitting technical tests without a decent README to really explain what they've done. So don't overlook that. You usually get a week to complete the task with some flexibility here and there, but once you commit to a deadline, make sure that you stick to it, because obviously that shows your commitment as well. The other type of technical test that we see a lot is the live coding test. And it can be hit or miss with job seekers. Some people really enjoy it because it's more collaborative, and I think also job seekers can get a better feel for what it's like to actually work at a company. But it can also scare the bejesus out of people too, and some people just don't work well in that kind of situation. So I'll come back to that more later when we talk about the hiring process. But yeah, so some tips and pointers where we see people fall down in these is they haven't set up their development environment properly beforehand. So there's a lot of fumbling and stuff that happens at the start of the call. Not slick, it looks really amateur, don't do it. Communicate. Make sure that you're talking throughout the interview to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, because the reason they're doing a live coding test is not just to look at your code, but it's also to see how you communicate ideas effectively and how easy you are to understand. Lead the conversation, but ask questions too. So don't be afraid to seek clarification, and the interviewer should be there to help. Use all the tools that you would use in your day-to-day. So if you use Google to look something up, ChatGPT, whatever, most live coding tests these days, companies are like open-minded enough to give people a natural environment to do their best thing in. So don't be afraid to do that. It's not cheating, it's just how it works. And be open to feedback. You might get feedback on your decisions within the interview, and obviously in that kind of pressurized situation, it can be easy to get a bit defensive, but try and take it on board, listen and adapt, and that should help you well. The third one can be system design. So this is more high level, focusing on design and architecture. You might be asked to implement a feature in an existing app. For example, how would you add an instant messaging feature? There's one that we've seen before. Good pointers for this interview. Again, clarify the question. Don't dive in without fully understanding what they're looking to understand. So it's a really good and mature question to ask at the start. Lead the discussion. This will influence how your seniority is judged as well. Clarify evaluation criteria. So know what the interview is looking for, whether it's scalability, testability, performance metrics, etc. Stick to familiar tools. Again, unless told otherwise, use what you know best or talk about what you know best. And accept feedback gracefully. Again, stay open-minded, don't get defensive. Then typically it can move on to a Q&A technical interview as well. Less common these days, but still used often to kind of talk through the technical test that you've maybe done in a previous round. Make sure that you've reviewed that test before you go into this interview, because you will end up fumbling it if you think you can blag it. Make sure that you're on top of anything that they might pick up on. And be prepared to talk about edge cases and alternative approaches as well. Know your CV as well. If you've labelled yourself as an expert in a particular area, be ready for a deep dive. Finally, the cultural fit round. The STAR technique. So preparing for this stage of the interview process can be tough because, unlike the technical rounds, there isn't a clear right or wrong answer. Expect example-led questions here where the interviewer wants to understand how you've handled certain scenarios in your career. Common questions are, when have you faced conflict in your teams and how did you resolve it? When have you made a mistake? What was the impact on it of it and how did you rectify it? How do you ensure that users get the best experience, etc., etc. How to handle this round. Interviews are your chance to sell yourself, but you need to be authentic, otherwise you're kidding yourself and the interviewer. Don't try and big up your experience more than it is. I think also be honest about what you're good at and what you're not good at, because that often helps companies identify your strengths and weaknesses, and most companies will be open to the idea that you're going to need to improve in some areas. They're not going to be unrealistic about that. So being honest is a good thing. Don't downplay or avoid less positive work experiences as well. Talk about issues you've had, talk about difficult situations that you've resolved, because that is a part of everyday work. And I think a good thing that you should bring up in interviews. Your best friend in this type of cultural fit interview is the STAR technique, which helps you to structure your answers as follows. The first point is situation. Set the scene and provide context. The next is the task. Explain what was required of you and why. Activity. Detail the action you took. And R is result. Describe the outcome, what you learned, and how it impacted future work. So every question that you get asked in this kind of context, you should try and structure in that way. Use real life examples instead of hypothetical ones. The interviewer wants to know how you've actually handled these situations, not how you might. Where possible, back up your points with metrics. Once again, this is a really powerful thing to do throughout the interview process. Use I instead of we to highlight where it's something that you actually worked on rather than the team specifically. Follow these tips. They won't guarantee success, but they should definitely help you tackle the unexpected and significantly improve your chances. So that's the kind of first half of the presentation. I guess I'll open the floor now to any questions before we go and have a bit of a drinks break. Sure.
Is it important to have a premium LinkedIn account?
Not necessarily. Most of the features are available on a basic account. Premium, I would say, gives you better kind of searching capabilities. And it does open up some more avenues for you, but you can certainly be very effective without it.
I thought maybe premium account could make my profile more searchable or no?
There's debate on this. It shouldn't, but maybe it does. So I would have a look on the LinkedIn Premium features page and see what it suggests on their topic. I think that it can't hurt for sure, but equally it depends how active you are. If you're actively searching for jobs right now, then upgrading and getting some premium features will probably be a good thing, and you can always turn that off at a later date. Any other questions? Sure.
I guess I've read that the tech job market isn't at its most buoyant at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that? Like, do we see that heading in a positive direction? Or?
Yeah, so I'm going to go into that a little bit in the second half of the talk, but my general feeling is yes, there's been a massive nosedive in the tech job market. I think it's been quite widely publicised, and there's been a market for a while where there's been a big abundance of candidates available for jobs and much fewer jobs around, so it's become very competitive. We have seen over the last sort of 2 or 3 months, really since the turn of the new financial year in April, that things are starting to improve and there's better kind of economic views on things. There's obviously a lot of uncertainty still out there in the world, and I think that these things always have an impact on the situation, and so it's difficult to predict what it will be on an ongoing basis, but we're certainly seeing signs. We're making more placements, we're taking more jobs on. Is starting to come back. I would still say it's kind of lukewarm. It's not hot like it was post-COVID, but then a lot of people's, I suppose, most recent memory of the job market is COVID, and that was, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and that was a crazy time. Like, you know, we had record year after record year because just how much activity there was. But every bubble has to burst, and it has kind of burst. But a new normal will establish itself. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. It's starting to look more positive. Any other questions? Sure.
Yep, we've got a few on Slido, and I'll read them out now. Should I have my own web page?
It depends what you do. So I guess if you're a designer, 100%. If you're a developer, I think something like GitHub or similar is enough to really showcase enough about you, supported by a good CV and LinkedIn profile. Really, like, the engineers' sort of personal websites are really just another repeat of their CV and experience. I don't really see what value it adds. It doesn't hurt for sure, but I wouldn't recommend taking loads of time out to go and do it as a priority. I would really focus on the other things that I've spoken about today first.
Another question from Slido. If location is important, how does this impact getting hired for a remote role?
So I probably should have caveated that point with, obviously, if you're looking for remote roles, then location is less important, and you want to mark yourself as open to remote roles specifically, which you can do on the kind of open to jobs feature on LinkedIn. So yeah, of course, if you're looking for remote roles, location is less important. But if location is important, then you need to be accurate with it.
Okay, and finally on Slido, how useful is posting on LinkedIn, articles, links, etc., to boosting your profile?
Yeah, for sure. I think as a starting point, it's good to show your general interest. Like, just kind of regurgitating basic stuff is, I guess, kind of just adding to the noise. Maybe if you're going to do that, then also add your views and comments on the thing that you're posting. If it's Apple's latest announcement about Vision OS, like, talk about why you're excited about it, why you're interested in it, show that you're engaged rather than just going copy paste link BBC News bosh. Like, that doesn't really add any value. It's more about presenting yourself as somebody that is interested and interested in the technology.
Thank you.
Let's go through. Oh, sorry, one more. Yeah.
On the location thing, is there a good way of indicating that you'd be willing to move for a job?
Good question. I guess the best way to do that is to talk about it in your summary. So in your summary section, you're talking about your experience, all of that stuff, but also it should detail what you're looking for as well. And I think that's the best place to really go into the nitty-gritty. But it's a good point. It's a really important thing to be very clear on your CV, on your LinkedIn profile, exactly what your criteria is, because it saves a lot of time. Hello?
I like ask one question regarding what is the chance of person of getting a job in this current situation in case the person needs some kind of sponsorship. So in that case, what would be the situation?
Yeah, so look, it will inevitably limit your opportunity to some degree, because particularly I would say in earlier stage businesses, it's a more difficult thing to do. They don't often have the time and resources to engage with the sponsorship program, but there are certainly a lot of there are a lot of companies out there that do offer sponsorship for exceptional talent, and so it's just about identifying those. Again, the help of a good recruiter can help you to do that. It's worth doing some research as well. There's definitely opportunity out there still. I think it's more difficult at the moment with such a saturation of candidates on the market. That is starting to normalise, I think, but it can be a challenge. But you just have to keep persistent, and the same with any job search. Persistence pays, and particularly in that circumstance, being persistent, being calculated, being targeted with your search is the most powerful way.